Welcome, everyone, to the Banking and Consumer Affairs Subcommittee. I appreciate you all coming out today. We're all sleep deprived and running an hour behind because of daylight savings time. So thank you all for coming out today. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Representative Barrett, Bricken, Camper, Faison, Garrett, Lynn, Sparks, Vaughn, Chairman Powers.
Here.
Chairman Powers, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The first thing we need to do is do a little bit of housekeeping. Chairman Vaughn has requested, he's got 3 bills on the calendar and he's out presenting a few bills right now. Requested to roll House Bill 1062, 1092, 2092, and 1050 to the heel of the calendar. And next thing, are there any personal orders from anybody on the committee? Anywhere? All in, all done. What are you going to give? I won't go into the auctioneer thing. Okay, the first bill on the calendar is Chairman Grill's House Bill 2762. And Chairman Grills, you're recognized. I think we have a motion and a second, and I believe there's an amendment.
If it'd be okay, we just...
Is there an amendment?
No, sir, we're not going to
Okay.
put the amendment.
No amendment.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, and Chairman Grills, you're ready to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Last week we were here. We had some people from the National Shooting Sports Association, our foundation. They testified about the importance of this bill. The NRA was here, and they testified about the importance of this bill. And in 2022, the financial institution introduced unique merchant category codes specifically for transactions at firearm stores. These newly established merchant codes have raised concerns as financial institutions have publicly declared that they enable the identification of purchase as potentially high-risk transactions, granting them the authority to file suspicious activity reports with the Treasury Department Financial Crimes Network. It is important to note that this unique merchant code is applied to any purchase at a firearm store, regardless of whether the transaction involves a firearm or not. Adoption to these MCCs will subject law-abiding citizens who purchase an item at a firearm store to search warrants and questioning based on ill-found and baseless suspicious activities. Therefore, this legislation is introduced to limit the capacity of financial institutions to engage in unauthorized surveillance of consumers engaging in lawful transactions at firearm stores. This legislation bans financial institutions from acquiring or discriminating against firearm stores that do not participate in the usage of unique merchant codes that are different from general purchase merchant codes or sporting goods merchants codes, which is the way they were previously characterized in the past. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, let's just postpone it because we got somebody here to testify. Okay, and we've already given somebody time. We have Mr. Kelby Senior, is that correct, from the NRA that's going to testify?
He is
Chairman
here
Grills.
to answer questions if anyone has a question.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, we had him down
I'm sorry.
to testify, but okay, so, okay. Do we have any questions for the chairman then? Sorry. Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Brickens, for yielding. Representative Grills, last week whichever week it was, we talked about this bill. I think I asked the question about whether we saw instances of this happening in Tennessee, and I just cannot remember what the answer was. And if we did, is it something that was widespread or something that you were just trying to be in a preemptive way? Or I'm just trying to see, what's happening in Tennessee.
Chairman Grills.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This code is currently not used in Tennessee, but I believe it is used in California. And in December of 23, there were 48 senators that signed a letter encouraging more card companies to enact these types of codes. So there's definitely a push to go in that direction.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So it's not because we're seeing a problem here. You're trying to get ahead of it before, in your mind, it becomes one.
Chairman Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll quote Representative Barrett. He said earlier this morning, "An ounce prevention is better than a pound of cure any day of the week."
He did
Leader
say that.
Camper. Yeah, I heard that.
He did say
Yeah, I
that.
had never heard that before.
Oh, my mom used to say that all the time. You know, I get the point. Um, I do get the point. But my concern was that, we are constantly doing things. That's not a real problem here. And, Tennessee, you have a, really relaxed gun laws here. And I don't see that there's an issue here. And so I was just curious as to why we were, trying to, pass this bill, to get in front of a problem that doesn't exist. So that's really why I was asking that particular question. Also, I had a question, Mr. Sponsor. Would this also, how does this affect, like these pawn shops and places like that, who they sell ammo and guns and places like that? Would this affect them to
Chairman
any
Grills.
degree?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding these affect firearm stores and those only.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? We got a question on the bill. Without objection, we're going to be voting on House Bill 2762. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The ayes have it. If you want to be recorded as no, just check with the clerk, and we will do that. And the bill passes. And you, Chairman Grills, you are headed to Commerce Full.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and
All right,
Committee.
thank you. The second item on the calendar is House Bill 2396 by Representative Harris, presented by Representative Bing. Representative Bing, you're recognized. Got a motion and a second. Representative Bing, you're
Thank you
recognized.
so much. Show bipartisanship. I appreciate it. So this is Representative Tori Harris and my bill. Representative Tori Harris has been trying to advocate for a higher minimum wage for his tenure here. So this bill seeks to increase the minimum wage for food delivery workers in Tennessee, some of the hardest working folks in our society. These frontline workers not only helped us get through the darkest days of the pandemic, but continue to provide vital services. Like most Tennesseans, they're feeling the pressure of our affordability crisis, and it would be irresponsible to leave them reliant on tips alone to cover their bills. By establishing an increased minimum wage pay rate for these hardworking individuals, we're ensuring that their dedication and tireless efforts are rewarded with fair compensation. Now, I know there's a few myths out there, so I wanted to dispel them proactively. So one, raising the minimum wage would kill jobs. Using 40 years of data from around the United States, this basically found no jobs were lost when the minimum wage went up. Additionally, 70 years of Department of Labor data do not show any correlation between minimum wage increases and job loss. Second myth I hear is raising the minimum wage will blow a hole in our state budget. Raising minimum wage doesn't just increase tax revenue, it also elevates workers out of poverty, getting them off government assistance. Many workers in Tennessee are paid so little that they need our SNAP program, aka food stamps, to get enough food on the table to survive. So they deliver for us, so it's time to deliver for them. I know this is a bill that probably will not make it out of this subcommittee, but I would love to hear thoughts. I'd love I love your face. I'd love to hear some comments or statements as to how you all think that we could increase the minimum wage for food delivery workers in Tennessee.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any questions from the committee or comments? Or suggestions, anything? Representative Sparks.
This is a tough one. It really is. What was your first job? I'm just going to ask you.
I was a hostess.
Representative Bing.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I was a hostess at a restaurant.
Really? You probably got paid a lot in tips, wouldn't you?
Representative Sparks. Representative Bing.
I did not receive any tips.
You didn't. My first job was
Representative Sparks.
$1.50 an hour. I had to walk a mile and a half to work, and I was tickled with that job. 13 years old. What I was just doing some research. What does the average? I don't know anybody that makes minimum wage, and I think you and I talked about this the other day. I told you I was going to ask some questions. Does anybody know anybody that makes $7.25 an hour? Makes
State
that
representatives.
that does that knows that. Okay.
I'm sorry, Representative Bing.
I have a few neighbors that do. And so I know that the fiscal note said that their estimates say that most delivery workers make around 15.
Yeah.
But there's multiple studies out there that in Tennessee that oftentimes folks make under, especially in rural areas, for example, where
You know,
Representative Sparks.
Chairman, you know, Brent that works at McDonald's on Nissan Drive, he's a guy signed my petition, first guy signed it going through the drive-through. He's probably making 15, does a great job in there for years. I know I know one in LA up here. I won't say his name, but he works, does delivery and picks up some good money doing this. Know another guy that's an attorney that's up here or used to be up here and makes good money with the department, but he does that. The Grubhub and some of that stuff and makes pretty good money. But I'm open to discussion. I hope I'm not the only one that has any questions or comments.
Representative Sparks, you're the only person I ever known that got the petition signed through a drive-through window. And what a great idea. It saves a lot of time. Okay, we have Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, I thought that there was some people here to testify. Do we have anyone here that's on the list to testify?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. You know, it's interesting. Yeah,
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's interesting to hear my colleague talk about the $15 an hour. I remember when there was a really big push for $15 an hour, and we heard that's going to have a negative effect. That's going to hurt businesses. That's going to increase costs and all of these things, this noise about what $15 an hour was going to do. And it, in fact, didn't do that. And so I think the pressure, you know, from the call for that, and even some of the, if you saw some of the local governments and counties across the country who began to have, you know, these livable wages, you know, for people, was probably why some of these companies decided to, in fact, raise the minimum wage to the $15 that my colleague was speaking of. But that shows that the myth that is going to have this negative impact is not true. Secondly, he asked a question earlier. Does anybody know anybody that makes? And I saw a lot of hands go up in the audience. We didn't see it on the camera, but a lot of people across the entire body here in the audience raised their hand. So there are people that's making, you know, minimum wage. And it's very difficult for families making minimum wage. And they're doing the best with the resources that they have. And a lot of them are having to work 2 and 3 jobs in order to make ends meet, as my mother would say. But what that does, by having to do that, it takes the parents out of the home because now they're working and juggling these jobs. And to me, raising the minimum wage would allow them to continue to stay in the family, stay at home, doing the homework instead of rushing to a second job and the children having to stay in aftercare a little longer. Or some of us, you know, back in the day, remember the latch kid, you know, children. So I think by raising the minimum wage, that would go to help families long term, not only with being able to, you know, pay for their bills and all the things that they're faced with, but also for the family structure, because the parents are at home. You know, they're there in the evening, they're cooking dinner, they're doing homework. And that's kind of the missing piece I think we have when we talk about the benefits of raising the minimum wage. So I support your bill. Hopefully, you know, the representative mentioned maybe some more conversation, and you even asked, you know, what could we do? What could you do? Anybody to have ideas, you know, concepts that could help us move this needle on, you know, raising the minimum wage. So I appreciate you bringing the bill, appreciate the stats you gave, and look forward to working with you on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Bain.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leader Camper. And to Representative Sparks, just to say that there's a lot of ebb and flow when it comes to how much food delivery workers make. And so there are days where they make below that, and there are days where they make above that. And so this bill would simply say the threshold, we believe, is around $12, which for those that are the bills that you'll hear later today, $20 is really the standard that I'm advocating for. But in this bill, it would just provide a specific threshold so that no one makes below that.
Okay, thank you. Representative Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question, then some thoughts. Representative Bain, in your opening, you said that those making $7.25 an hour qualify for SNAP. If you're working a 40-hour work week and you make $12 an hour, will you still qualify for SNAP?
Representative Bain.
I believe so, based on the amount of assets that household has.
Right. And if you have a child
Chairman Faison.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I'll get better. If you have a child and you're making what you said your dream was to get to $20 an hour, is it true that you'd still qualify for SNAP?
Representative Bain.
Well, in y'all's defense, you want less and less people off of these public programs. And so the argument you just made is that if you increase the minimum wage, more people would be off those programs. Is that what you're saying? Sorry. No. Okay.
Chairman Faison.
My question was just like, if you have a child and you make $20 an hour, which is where you want to get it to, would you in fact still qualify for SNAP?
Representative Bain.
I don't believe so at that rate.
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Depending on the people dependent on you, you would still qualify. So the leader from Memphis said we need to continue to talk about what can we do, what can we do. And since this bill's here, I think it's a good time to shine what Tennessee actually has done, because I don't know one who's okay with poverty. We want everyone to do well. I love to see people make money. So let me explain to you what happened in Tennessee under Governor Haslam's leadership. We made it possible that you can go to school and pretty much go to school for free to a TCAT or to a junior college and get a training. If you want a living wage job, if you want a living wage, then you get a living wage job that when you come out of TCAT after a 10, 12-month program, you can make $50,000, $60,000 a year, way more than $20 an hour. If you go to college, which we will help you, the state of Tennessee is one of the greatest states in America. If you want to make more money, we have provided a way for you to do far better than minimum wage. There's guys who are coming out of TCAT in Morristown with a welding certificate, and they're making $80 an hour at Oshkosh in Jefferson City. It's amazing what you can do. So I just want to say, when the leader asks, well, what can we do? We actually have taken some great forward steps and helping people get themselves out of poverty. We trying to just making sure that everybody else is helping to pay for you is a whole different story than we opening up a position for you to help yourself and lift yourself out of poverty. That's sustainable. I don't know how sustainable. When I see these minimum wage bills, I always wonder, why not just say $50 an hour? Well, the reason we don't say that, I'll answer that, is because it's not sustainable. What is sustainable is when you decide, I'm going to take ownership of my future and get a job that pays. And the state of Tennessee has provided a platform for any Tennessean to get to school, get a certificate, get a degree, and become a productive member of society.
Representative Bain, do you have a comment?
Just to say that I believe that we should pay people a fair wage, and that providing other things to them as well is really important. I hear you that you want people to go to TCAT. That may not be the option for a lot of working families. The demographic of folks that are food delivery workers are often parents with 2 to 3 jobs, and so they are trying to make their lives better by working, but unfortunately those low wage jobs keep them trapped in poverty and beholden to these programs that not you, but maybe your party doesn't believe in funding. But I really appreciate your statements.
Chairman Bricken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things about moving any wage up, or especially if by government assigned wage increases, I mean, in my mind, and I think it's been proven by economists that it's what I call a zero-sum game, and that any movement up in wages gets absorbed in the inflation numbers. So basically the living standards of most people affected in this in this area doesn't live any better because the inflation has totally cannibalized the benefit of the wages. So, and you can go to fast foods, and I think we can all see the automation that has come into play in our service industry, and employers certainly are trading off employees with automation, and higher minimum wages would only increase that. Lastly, if I could, I was just curious, the minimum wage came into law in 1938 at a quarter. In 1967, when I got my first job, it was at 40 cents. So, and there's 7 1/4 since 2009. So it's gone up 180% since from I guess 1967 to today, or 2009, but that just shows you how inflationary or wages and all in the correlation over the last certainly 10, 20, 30 years. It's anyway, I think that's, the economics of it. And again, the market truly is the dictator of, in my mind, the proper wage that should be set. And that's why it's probably hadn't been changed since 2009. So more comments and questions.
Representative Banks.
Yeah. Thank you, Representative Bricken. I really appreciate you bringing up inflation. To give you an idea, the CEO of DoorDash made $413 million last year. And oftentimes, and I'm receiving this comment from the grocery tax also, is that companies can do one of two things. They can either adjust their profit margins, right? So that means taking money away from the CEO, making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, or they can pass that cost on to the consumer. And so I think a comment about this bill would be, well, the person ordering the food would then pay exorbitant costs because the company would pass that cost on the consumer. But if you all believe in a free market, then the consumer dictates where they want to go and where they want to buy goods. So they would merely not use DoorDash if that was the case. So just to say that, once again, this bill is related to a certain threshold because a lot of people, in moments, to be fair to Representative Sparks, make less than the minimum wage when their DoorDash delivery ebbs and flows. And so this is merely instituting a threshold so that no one makes lower than that. But I really appreciate your comments as well. Thank you. This has been great. Thanks so much. I've really enjoyed this.
Leader Camper, you're up again.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was the caucus chairman called my name, and that's right.
He just said leader.
Yeah, well, I think it's one leader in here. So anyway, so in terms of position, and he talked about the drive to 55, and I agree with you on that. And I know that also we're not there yet. And that was a goal set by Governor Haslam. I supported it, vote for it, etc. But thanks to Governor Bredesen, though, because it was a race to the top that created the legislation to be able to do just that. And I think we're all trying to do that. I think that we all want a goal for people to be able to get educated so that they can make a living for themselves. So I applaud Haslam for his great work. And I think we should do more to try to help get there, to be honest. So I'm in agreement with you on that. But I also think it's not just that. that we can have a multi-pronged approach. And so that's one aspect, that's one way. But there's so many people that are not going to choose that path for whatever reason. But I'm glad it's there and it's available, and I support it. And have went out and talked to students about it, and talked to families about it, the Reconnect program, all the programs in there. I think we've all on this dais have done that. But we don't have to be singly focused. We can have a multi-pronged approach, and I think this goes to what she's trying to do, so people can have more options and not just one single option. So thank you for the bill.
All right, thank you. Just to mention one thing too, I remember my first job was $1.25, and when it finally went up to $1.90, I thought it was rich. But that was a long time ago. But I understand, and just I want to mention one other thing, and I know the committee is probably aware of, but we really don't have a minimum wage, in Tennessee because we're one of the 15 states that follow the federal law. So one thing we'd have to do before we ever increase the minimum wage, we'd have to come back and establish the fact that we actually do have one in the state of Tennessee, because right now we're just following what the federal guidelines are. I think there's 12, 15 states that do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Helpful. Thank you so
and-
much.
And go back to Representative Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sponsor, thank you for bringing the bill and for opening up this debate to have this conversation. And there's been a lot of good points made up and down the line. I just want to address a couple of things. One, you mentioned the income that the CEO of DoorDash makes. And look, I would suggest that there's ways of addressing that through the consumers getting together and deciding that they don't want to do business with that company. If they think that CEO or that company is not doing business the right way, I think Bud Light just learned a lesson on that, on what happens when you mess with your customer base. But the problem with minimum wages and raising minimum wages or establishing them in the different states is it's essentially a tax that gets passed on to the consumer. Every time that you tell a company how much money they're going to have to spend in overhead, they're going to adjust. The CEO and the shareholders are not going to eat that cost. And I understand, I've heard you say, well, they can choose to do that, but they're not going to. In reality, they're not going to. And so I just did a quick Google search while we were talking here, and there's a website, delish.com, if anybody that wants to check it out, that ranks the cost of a meal at McDonald's in all 50 states. Right now, Tennessee is 35th. That's because we don't put these restrictions and taxes and oversight on these businesses and tell them how they have to spend their money and how much they have to pay their employees. And if you want to understand how the impact is, well, you just have to look at the top states that are mentioned: Massachusetts, Vermont, California, New York, Hawaii, Washington, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, all blue states, all putting big minimum wages in place at the state level. So again, there's a reason Tennessee does the way we do it. There's a reason that we recruit so heavily to bring other businesses in, because when a business comes into a community, and we're already looking at small single digit unemployment across the board in Tennessee, they have to hire from the employee field that's already there. So when they start doing that, the only way that they can recruit those workers away from other businesses is to offer higher wages, offer better benefits, offer insurance, things like that. So we're essentially raising the minimum wage in Tennessee by recruiting more and more businesses to come in and offer more and more opportunities and compete against each other in the workforce. So that's all I have.
Yeah, Representative Bain.
Thank you, Representative Barrett. I really appreciate it. Just to say that the DoorDash, or the types of DoorDash companies, aren't headquartered here. And so they're pulling resources out of the state of Tennessee and not putting any money back. So just to say, I mean, your argument is valid for McDonald's. I totally hear you. But for delivery workers specifically, those companies aren't giving back anything into Tennessee. So.
Yes, and going back to what they said before, there's so many companies out there that are paying so much more, just market driven. I went through Chick-fil-A the other day, and they had a sign up there. You start out at $20 an hour with benefits and everything. And I got a 12-piece nugget and an application. And and an application and 10 or 12, whatever it was. But anyway, we got any other questions? Anybody? Okay, got a question on the bill. And we're going to be voting on House Bill 2396. All in favor say aye. All opposed? No. I think the noes have it. We got a
Thank
no.
you. Yeah,
All right,
Representative
sorry.
Sparks. I see
With-
that.
If you want to be recorded as an aye.
Thank you, Chairman. I
Thank you,
appreciate it. Thank you.
Representative Bain. Okay, the next item on the calendar is House Bill 2507 by Representative Harris. Is that the wrong one? Yes. Do I have a motion? I've got a motion and a second. Representative Harris, you're recognized on House Bill 2507.
Thank you, Chairman.
No amendments, are there?
No, thank you, Chairman. And to the committee, House Bill 2507 is relative to parking and booting. In 2023, a woman who had parked at a booting authorized parking lot across from where she had gone to dinner was just minutes past her allotted paid parking time when she came back to her vehicle and noticed it had a boot on it. Moments after this, she was robbed and unable to leave due to the boot on her vehicle. With keys in her hand, the report said that her purse, her phone, and her identification all were taken while in the dimly lit parking lot. Surprisingly, this was not the first incident of this happening and has been noted on multiple occasions in our state and others. Currently, booting companies can place a boot on your vehicle at any time of day, and there is no statewide regulation on how long after an individual pays the penalty fee that the booting company will come and remove the boot from your vehicle. I have a long list of booting issues that I won't go through, but when this young lady brought forth the issue to me, I began to research and found that in Georgia, they are in the midst of banning booting altogether as a bipartisan effort by four state rep Republicans and 3 state rep Democrats. Currently, booting companies can place a boot on your vehicle at any time of day, and there is no statewide regulations towards that. While many may have an interest that we get rid of the process of booting altogether, this legislation, as you see, is one line. It only does one thing, and that is it makes it to where booting companies must not install a device on a motor vehicle after sunset or before sunrise, just so that for safety reasons. And I ask for a positive recommendation.
All right, thank you. And first on the list is Chairman Vaughn.
Representative Harris, we just moments ago in Business and Utilities, we just redid the entire booting statute in our state. I don't recall whether or not this portion that you're dealing with was included that, but I would encourage you to get with Representative McCalman is bringing it. It's a long sorted affair, but we've heard demonstrations and anecdotal information with regards to some of the activities that are going on through that process. So I just wanted this committee to know that we'll be seeing it in full commerce next week, I believe. But we did go through a comprehensive list. And like I said, it was a complete redo of all the booting and towing with regards to public parking. With this, I have a little bit of an issue with your bill because of the fact that at the same time, if booting is done legally, then you're taking away an enforcement mechanism from a property owner who has had his space rented. I believe and I don't think that's your intent. I think your intent is to get at the bad actors. I just wanted you to know that I'm not going to be able to support your bill, but I think that if you got with Representative McCalman, if there was something in there that you could work out, because like I said, it is an extensive rewrite because of many, like the instances you talked about. We're already handling that on another vehicle, and you had no way of knowing that being not a part of this. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, that we are sensitive to the issues in this industry.
Okay, thank you. Representative Harris.
Thank you, Chair, and to the my colleague from Shelby County as well. Of course, I'm aware of the other language as well. Representative McCalmick and Senator Johnson ran it as part of last year too, and so I'm in full support of that as well. This is more so of the safety mechanisms around hours, and of course, like you said, if a property owner doesn't want a vehicle there, I don't know how stalling a vehicle on your property is actually allowing you the extra space. But I, of course, am not trying to do anything that gets away from taking booting away as a whole, more so just for the safety pieces of it around those hours. What I'll do is, if the committee is willing, I would take this one off notice, work with McCalmick and just see how we can try to implement this into that one.
Okay.
Awesome.
You want to take it off notice then? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Without objection, we're going to take, we got an objection. We've got some other people on the list over here. Do you want, okay. Okay. Do you want to speak? Representative?
Just take it off.
Okay. Okay. Without objection, we're going to take House Bill 2507 off notice. Thank you, Representative Harris, for working with us, and we'll get together on the other bill. Okay. Okay. Item number 11. Okay, the next bill.
Just go ahead and announce that.
Okay, the next bill on the calendar is House Bill 417 by Representative Hemmer. Yeah, he's here. And we have a motion and a second. I got a motion and a second. And Representative Hemmer, do you want to discuss your bill?
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. Wanted to make sure everyone knows today is Equal Pay Day, and welcome for that, and bringing this legislation today in recognition of that. Equal Pay Day is symbolically used to raise awareness around the impact of pay inequalities and acknowledge the reality that on average, women in working full-time in the United States earn significantly less than men. The gender pay gap is complex and nuanced, and there are several factors that lead to this unequal outcome. One of those factors is a lack of transparency in salary negotiations. So House Bill 417 would eliminate the salary history question on job applications while also requiring employers to publicly post employment advancement opportunities and the expected salary range for open positions. Closing gender and racial wage gaps is essential to building an equitable economy and addressing the barriers that have long hampered women from fully participating in the labor force. And so reliance on these past salary and a lack of pay transparency can potentially contribute to discriminatory pay and that follows women from job to job, entrenching gender pay gaps over time. So I'm asking the committee to consider this information and look further into this issue in honor of Equal Pay Day and champion policies that tackle pay discrimination, create good paying jobs, and support women and families. That, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And do we have any questions for the sponsor? Oh, Representative Garrett, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I've not been able to review this in its entirety, and I think there's some good discussion that can be made with that, I would request that this, and I would motion this to be sent to summer study, Mr. Chairman.
We have an objection. Okay. We're going to be voting on whether to send, yes, I'm sorry. Voting on whether to send House Bill 417 to summer study. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the ayes have it. This is going to go to summer study. And if you want to be recorded as no, just let the clerk know. And thank you, Representative Hemmer, for your bill. Okay. The next one up will be item number 7. Because the others have been rolled. Item number 7 is House Bill 2711 by Representative Garrett. We've got a motion and a second. I don't see an amendment. Representative Garrett, you're up on House Bill 2711.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. House Bill 2711 has been brought to me by our Attorney General Subcommittee. It is a piece of legislation that involves our Tennessee Trade Practices Act. And just to kind of give you all a brief overview of what that is, this deals with price fixing and it deals with monopolization of certain companies. This particular piece of legislation has been on the books for over 100 years and it's not been touched significantly since then. One thing that we are doing here in this piece of legislation is and this kind of details how antiquated the legislation is that right now, currently, our Trade Practices Act only deals with goods for protecting if you price fix or if you have a monopoly. And if any of the committee or anybody listening has seen the movie called The Informant, with Matt Damon as the actor in that particular movie, that was a company that had billions of dollars worth of revenue, and they sold a certain chemical, and there were 6 or 7 companies that sold this chemical that generated billions of dollars of revenue for all these different companies, and they would get together and decide what their prices are. Right. So they would price fix the market so they can guarantee a certain profits. That's obviously against the law. And we certainly don't encourage that type of activity. Well, that is only around the goods, since that certain chemical is an actual good. Our current law, the way it's drafted right now, it only applies to goods. And so we are spreading that into services. That's one of the major points of this bill. So the Googles out there, the ones that only provide services, most of the activity that we do on our phones provides a service. And so our piece of legislation needs to be updated to include that particular service area as well, so we don't have folks and bad actors fixing their prices or actually having a monopoly. There's many other things that are involved in this piece of legislation, such as making the avenues for the Attorney General to enforce these particular provisions where there's not this multitude of discovery. If someone asks the Attorney General for a piece of discovery that might be applied to the legislature or whatnot, right now they're supposed to respond to that, even though that discovery is not necessarily in the possession of the Attorney General. There's no way that they can respond to that. So it kind of tamps down the ability of folks bringing frivolous lawsuits to make sure we can address and temper the companies that tend to monopolize the industry. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take any questions. Otherwise, I renew my motion.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the sponsor on the committee? Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Garrett, you mentioned at the top that this is an old statute that has not been utilized. There's no problems, I guess, or I'm just trying to see what is driving us to not only visit this part of the statute, but it's very comprehensive. It's a lengthy bill. It's doing a lot. What got us to this point?
Representative Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Leader Camper, I didn't mean to state or imply whatsoever that it's a statute that's not used. It's a statute that's used. It's just a statute that its language needs to be updated. We slightly updated this in the late 70s, but literally it hasn't been touched since. And so that's why it only dealt with goods such as your phones that you might purchase from iPhone or Google or whatever, Android or whatever phones you're getting. Now it's updated to include services, because our consumers, our Tennesseans, might get hoodwinked over companies that are in the service area, and we need to update that so we can capture that to make sure they're doing the people of Tennessee good and not becoming bad actors. So I don't mean to state that this is not something that's being used. It's just something that, in fact, Tennessee out of the 50 states is one of the last states to update their Tennessee Trade Practices Act. So we're catching up here. So that's what our Attorney General is hoping to succeed by making sure our act can deal with the current climate as we deal with these companies in the service industry specifically.
Leader Camper.
Not so much that there wasn't any violations going on. I kind of read that at the beginning that maybe there were no violations. There was no need for this. So I thought you was getting ready to take it off the books. But then you went into another discussion. So that's why I asked that question. Okay. And so are there penalties in here that are addressed in here that may have been updated as well? And the provisions around those penalties?
There are, for the Attorney General to bring suit, there are ways for companies, if they do violate this particular act, that the Attorney General has the ability to stop that behavior. So the penalty side of this hasn't changed so much, other than who can be subject to the act.
Leader Camper, do you have?
And
okay, Representative Garrett.
And it also amends and strengthens our ability to enforce this under the Tennessee Consumer Protection Act. So it just modernizes the act, since it's not been touched too much since 1978 and barely touched even before that, and it's over 100 years of existence.
All right, any other questions on the committee? If not, it looks like we're ready to vote. On House Bill 2711, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 2711 moves on to commerce, full commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and
All
committee.
right, thank you. And Representative Garrett, I believe you have the next one, House Bill 2713, and you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have an amendment that I believe rewrites the bill. That's Amendment Code 13721.
Yes. Yeah, I got a question on the amendment. I got a second, motion and a second. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. All opposed? The amendment goes on. Representative Garrett, you're recognized again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And don't committee get confused with the previous bill that dealt with antitrust. This deals with trust legislation. They're complete opposite of each other. And in fact, don't travel in the same path. So for the committee, this is I believe the sixth time that I have carried the trust legislation from our Tennessee Bankers Association.
It seems like more, yeah.
They have a division within the Tennessee Bankers Association that do a great job to continue to update our specific trust legislation. So I appreciate the work of our Bankers Association because they really do a good job. And evidence of that is that in the past 8 years, in Tennessee, we've gone from having $25 billion managed here under trust to today's dollar of over $270 billion. And I would note to the committee that that's folks that may not even live here or be in Tennessee. It's just we've created a set of our statutes and laws that governs these trusts that protect not only the trust assets, but protects the beneficiaries, et cetera, in that process to make sure that our trust laws here remain competitive and people would like to park their money here. So that's always been a good thing. What this piece of legislation does, it actually doesn't do as much as it has in the past. It simply clarifies a couple of provisions and a couple of provisions as it relates to guardians, conservators, and family members. It also clarifies that a private trust company, when that trustee in a private trust company changes, it doesn't change the control of that particular trust. It also carves out some more advantages for folks that have a family general partnership, and that's an estate planning tool. If you all have any questions about that, I'll be glad to answer those. And then that's it. Oh, and also we incorporate if a trust is outside someone else's, outside this state, a word that only those lawyers that dealt with the bar exam under the rule of perpetuities, we would capture another state's perpetuity time if it's longer than Tennessee's, which is 360 years. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions, but that's a brief overview of this particular legislation.
Thank you. If I had an intelligent question, I would ask it. We got a question on the bill. Okay, well, we're going to be voting on House Bill 2713. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It passes. House Bill 2713 moves to full commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Thank you, Representative Garrett. Okay, item number 9 by House Bill 2116 by Representative Barrett. Representative Barrett, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, we may want to check with the clerk. It's my understanding that this may have failed or been sent to summer study in Senate. Not sure on that. So may need to just take this off notice or roll it to next week to see what's happened.
It failed. Okay, yeah, it failed in the Senate. You
Okay.
want to take it off notice?
We'll take it off notice.
Okay. Okay, House Bill, without objection, House Bill 2160 is being taken off notice. Okay, the next one up is House Bill 2243 by by Chairman Zachary. Got a motion and a second. Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Mr.
you're
Chairman and
recognized.
committee. Members, while I'm sure many of you would like to continue a weekly discussion on ESG and conversations with Chairman Powers and Chairman Vaughn, I think we have reached our limit on the ESG discussion. While I do feel like this is an important bill and a transparency bill requiring investment advisors to fulfill their fiduciary responsibilities and invest in financial factors, this is probably a conversation for another time. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to take this off notice.
All right, thank you. And without objection, we're going to take House Bill 2243 off notice. Thank you, Chairman. And House Bill 1721 has been taken off notice by Representative Gillespie. The next one is House Bill 1953, and it has been, we've already taken it off notice, right? Has it been rolled? Hold on just a moment. Okay, we need a motion and a second to take House Bill 1953 to summer study.
Objection.
He-
Mr. Chairman,
He has requested.
praise the Lord.
Yes, I need a motion and a second to,
At the request of the sponsor, Mr. Chairman, I move that we consider House Bill 1953 to in summer study.
okay. And do we have a second? Without objection, we're going to take House Bill 1953 to summer study. Thank you. I don't think we had to vote because he's not here. Okay. And House Bill 2602 by Representative Johnson, as you're up next. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr.
Need a
Chairman.
motion and a second. Where is it?
And I believe we have someone to testify on the bill. Would you rather do that first or get my explanation first?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. We got a motion and a second. And we got someone here to testify.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I got turned on the wrong page.
It's
Okay, yes, let's go out of, you want to do that first then
That'd be
before
fine,
you, okay. Okay, let's go out of session and, oh yeah, I'm sorry, Barbara Jones, is Barbara Jones here? And, oh yeah, we're going out of session and Emily Bowman, are you here? Emily Bowman? So Emily Bowman, is Emily Bowman here?
Just Barbara Jones.
Okay, so we just got Barbara Jones. Okay, Miss Jones. I just need to.
Good
you to
afternoon.
Give your name and who you're with, please.
All right.
And you have 3 minutes. to
Okay, my name is,
Testimony, and then we'll have some Q&A after that.
all right. Good afternoon. My name is Barbara Jones. I work at the University of Memphis. I have been there for 22 years. I am a member of the United Campus Workers Local 3865. And I'm here today to ask for support on this bill and the raises of minimum wages. $7.25 is not enough. Working families are struggling to pay their bills. Rent's gone up, the light bill's gone up, everything's gone up, but the minimum wages. Please support working families in Tennessee by passing this bill.
Thank you. And do we have any questions for Ms. Jones? Anyone? Oh, Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for traveling all the way up to give your testimony. I know you had to take time out of your schedule and away from your job and everything to be here, but we greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And thank you
Mhm.
for listening.
Did you also have John Scheffner on the list?
We did not, no. Do we have anybody else? Okay. Okay, we're going to go back into session. Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Okay, I'm bringing you House Bill 2602 because I believe in a living wage. This bill will raise the minimum wage in our state to $20 an hour. As of now, the minimum wage in Tennessee is $7.25. We use the federal minimum wage as we discussed earlier, which is the lowest possible amount a state can mandate per federal law. This has been the lowest minimum wage since 2009, meaning Tennessee has not seen an increase in over 13 years. Tennessee remains one of the top states in percentages of minimum wage workers. The average person making minimum wage is 35 years old. And a lot of people will say that with minimum wage workers, they're teenagers. There are more 55-year-old and over folks making minimum wage than there are teenagers making minimum wage. There's no time more dire for an increase in minimum wage as prices are skyrocketing everywhere you shop. Rent and other services are increasing in order to afford their supply. As a matter of fact, in Knoxville this year, we had folks on fixed incomes have their rent doubled. It went from $800 in several complexes in my district to $1,600, which is untenable for folks, especially those on a fixed income. Increasing our minimum wage also reduces inequality as people of color, as well as anyone who is unable to finish high school or enroll in college, have to take minimum wage jobs, therefore impoverishing them and forcing them to enroll in government provided programs. We know that there are multi-billion-dollar corporations in Tennessee who are employing people at a wage where, with working full time at the wage that they receive, they still qualify for SNAP benefits and those type things. So what we are doing is sending it backwards. But I want you all to look at there's a really cool tool, and for each one of you in each of your counties, it's an MIT living wage study. And you can go and look at Campbell County and see what a living wage is in Campbell County. And it breaks down why. The food costs, transportation, housing, all of those things. It is the neatest tool to get a picture of your county in Tennessee. But overall average for Tennessee, it's $20 an hour is what a living wage is for one person in Tennessee. It goes up to $29 for one person with one child. We know that childcare prices are expensive, and that causes a great increase. A lot of times people want to say that it causes a problem with prices. What we're seeing now, inflation, is greedflation. It's from companies that are price gouging folks and making more in profits than they ever have before. We are now making in the trillions in profits, but not raising the wage of the lowers. Somebody mentioned $40 an hour, I think back in the 30s. Well, based on increase right now, we'd be at $40 an hour based on the cost of living since then. So we're talking about half of what cost of living increase since that first initial minimum wage would be. The power of that wage would be at $40 per hour right now. So the reality is that people today cannot live on a minimum wage job. Some places are paying higher, that's true. But what we know is when the middle class and working families in Tennessee have more money in their pockets to spend, then everybody's business is lifted up. That's what boosts our economy. 1 million people shopping at Target or mom and pop shops at home does more for the economy than 1,000 people shopping at Tiffany's. So the reality is when people have more money in their pockets to spend, that boosts the economy for all of us. And right now, Tennesseans are struggling to keep afloat, and we have to raise that wage. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. And I want to go back to what had happened on Mr. Scheffner. He had gotten on the list, and then the bill got rolled, and we didn't get it carried over. So we do want to hear from him today. I'm sorry. We've made an error there. We should have rolled it over when the bill rolled over. So I apologize. And so we're going to go out of session, and we're going to hear from John Scheffner. And you please give your name and who you're with, please.
The on-off.
There it is. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate you looking into that error. My name is John Scheffner. I'm a professor of political economy at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and I'm also a 20-year member of United's Campus Workers. I'm speaking in favor of this bill. The federal minimum wage, to which Tennessee holds and has not changed since 2009, keeps families and individuals in poverty. That $7.25 an hour wage means those earning this amount make $290 in a 40-hour week, which translates to $15,080 a year. Importantly, this wage does not even bring families out of the too low federally defined poverty level. Please think about that level of income and bringing up a family on that amount of money. This has very real consequences for children and families. For example, according to the UTK Boyd Center, low household income puts the goal of home ownership out of reach for many Tennesseans, and those who are renting are becoming increasingly cost burdened. Representative Johnson mentioned the MIT Living Wage Study, which again recalculates the cost of food, childcare, healthcare, housing, transportation, and other basic needs in every county in the United States, providing a comprehensive measure of family needs. Representative Johnson was actually looking at some dated measures. The most up-to-date for Tennessee as a state, now again, it differs by county, but a living wage for a single adult without children right now is $20.77 an hour. For families with one adult and one child, that is one earner family with one child, the living wage is $33.72 or $67,440 in a 40-hour, 50-week year. I encourage all of you to look at these figures for your own counties. Simply put, families cannot survive on either the minimum wage or existing low wages. And low wages define life for a majority of Tennessee families. 1/2 of all Tennessee households make under $64,000, and Tennesseans work more hours than in 47 other states. By comparison, 29 states have higher minimum wages than Tennessee, and more than 20 of them have raised those wages this year. There is some conversation that, I will also say that 5%, we were asked, Representative Bain was asked some questions about minimum wage. Another measure to keep in mind is that 5% of the U.S. workforce, 8.4 million people, work 2 jobs or more. That's not a choice. That's by survival needs. We hear that in,
I'm sorry. We usually give 3 minutes apiece, but I'm going to go ahead and give you another minute. I just want to let you know. Okay.
I appreciate that. I'm very close. We hear that increased wages will lead to more unemployment, but recent trends demonstrate that's not the case. Wages in Tennessee and the United States have increased simultaneous with low unemployment. Most of those moving to Tennessee are in their prime working years. Providing a living wage can help businesses attract and retain excellent Tennessee wages. Finally, businesses can raise wages. Corporate profits have increased dramatically from 2002, when those profits were $786 billion, to 2022, when those profits were $3.523 trillion. We can afford to raise the minimum wage. We cannot afford persistent poverty in Tennessee. Raising the minimum wage is the right thing to do for Tennessee children and families, for Tennessee workers, and for Tennessee businesses.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you. Just stay where you are. We might have some questions for you. Okay. We can do a Q&A. Do we have any questions for our guests today? Anyone? Okay. We don't have any. So thank you a lot for coming out today, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry about the delay. And we're going to go back into session. Representative Johnson, I've got a couple for you real quick. What was the website you mentioned a while ago where you can go back and look at?
I'll pull it up here.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I've got it
And while
set
you're
in my
pulling
phone,
that
but
up,
it's MIT wage calculator. You can just look up MIT wage
okay,
calculator
got it.
or living wage.
Okay, got
It'll
it.
be there.
And one other question, I guess I have, wonder why they haven't raised, do you have any idea why they haven't raised the federal minimum wage since 2009?
I do not, because they should.
I just wondered about that. Okay, and we
I'm
have some
with you.
we have some questions for you, and the first, Chairman Faison.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Johnson, good to see you. This conversation, I've been here for 14 years. You've been here a lot too. This conversation comes up every year. Several years ago, the Brookings Institute did a study on this. And I just remember while we were talking about with Afton, and I wanted to turn y'all's attention to this. Brookings certainly couldn't be considered as some kind of right-wing outfit. They're centrist, leftist. I mean, they're very centrist institute. It says, as computers replace humans for minimum wage jobs, it will force displaced workers to upgrade their skills in order to stay competitive. Part of my life, I love to travel, and I've been out west, and I've been in New England where minimum wage jobs are exorbitant. It is amazing when you walk into a fast food restaurant, when you walk into a grocery store, when you walk into a place that historically that you would typically see workers who were on minimum wage, all of the automated machines that have taken place and been installed. It's taken the personality out of so many of the businesses when you go there. And Brookings, what they're saying is, you go ahead and read the rest of this. The notion is when you force that type of pay, the businesses, they're not going to give up on theirs. The corporations, they're going to make their money. That's why they're in a business. That's why they're a corporation. They're just going to find a way to do it cheaper. And now we've turned to robots to do our work. And in fact, even though we don't have a huge minimum wage here in Tennessee, you go to any grocery store here and you're going to find out that they've cut out a lot of the workers. So I would just say, as we move forward with this conversation, we also need to look at what's happening in other states and realize that all of a sudden the jobs that people did have, they're losing those right now to a robot.
Okay, Representative Johnson.
Yeah, there's no question that there is some of that happening, and jobs are going to change as we continue to progress. There's no doubt about that. However, whatever job you're working at, whatever that is, you need to be, if you're working a hard 40-hour week, you need to be making a living wage. And currently today, it's not happening. I want people to improve their skills, no question. I think that we talk about that up here a lot, and we're working towards that, and I appreciate that. However, everybody is not able to do that. And I would contend that anybody working that hard 40-hour a week should be able to support their family, take them to the doctor, and pay their rent, and not have to worry about, are they going to be able to pay the utility bill, or do they have to buy prescription drugs? So, the reality is that we need to deal with this today. And what we're seeing in other states that have raised the wage, they are doing fine. It is working. Some of the horror stories that people said would happen are not happening. And I've had and a wage, I've come with a wage bill that starts at a particular level and goes up $1 every year until you hit a certain amount. But the reality is, in looking at what it costs to live in Tennessee, I know it sounds like a big jump to folks, but the reality is that's what it costs to have a living wage in Tennessee.
Okay, Representative Sparks.
Thank you, Representative. These discussions I like. I
Yeah.
think we may have some ideas, may not always agree, but I look at my own life, and Faison raised up some good points about the record investment that we have given in education. When I was working at Nissan in the factory, praying every day to quit that place, trying to go to college, going to college. Now we got a $50 million TCAT across the street. We've got a Motlow College that my mentor told me he was going to bring a college to Smyrna. Never really believed him, but he made it happen. Bob Spivey. But I look at the opportunities that sometimes we didn't have, but at least I was able to buy my first home at 22 for $60,000. Times sometimes seem tougher today because I don't know how people are going to function, especially with young people when it comes to housing. We just had a housing task force study that I was proud of, and a lot of the problem with housing is excessive government mandates, regulations, and taxes that make it less affordable. But this may be the only committee that we really talk about and dive into some of these issues. Going back to what Faison mentioned about automation, that's really scary. This AI, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's going to be bad. I mean, I was at MTSU conference, and it was a guy talking about AI. He said those that know AI will just be the ones replacing those that don't. going back on the fast food, I'm a big fan of McDonald's, whether you like the food or not. It's efficient. Government can learn from McDonald's. It's efficient. You know, um, it's just, you know what you're going to get. They feed 1% of the population of the world. I didn't even know that till I heard that stat of the day. But if we went to this, in my opinion, you're going to see more automation. A friend of mine recently, he owned three Little Caesars. And he told me, we talked about minimum wage. He said all he would do, he would go, they got to where they can just go to an app, bypass all that. You get your pizza, boom. And the thing about McDonald's that not to try to be plugging them, but man, that gives, I read a stat, 1 in 8 young people, that's their first job. And you're learning customer service, you're learning to work hard. And if you ever worked in fast food, I worked in fast food, it's hard work. I mean, Faison probably don't know hard work until he's worked in a factory like I have and worked at Taco Bell and worked for $1.50 an hour. He don't know those hard work. But I appreciate you engaging in this. I can't support your bill, but I always support the discussion. Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that the discussion is critically important because the majority of Tennesseans do support raising the wage. Everybody, granted, everybody doesn't agree on what that wage should be, but all parties, have been polled in Tennessee together, and everybody does support raising the wage. But however, I want to be realistic about what it costs to live in Tennessee, and I also want to be realistic about, you go into a McDonald's. And by the way, I worked at Long John Silver's, Burger King, and Rack's Roast Beef. So. But you go into those places, and there's as many older folks working there as there are teens. As I said, there are more 55-plus-year-olds working for lower wages, minimum wage, than there are teenagers today. That's
Okay, thank you. Chairman Faison, your name was called. Do you want to comment? Okay, thank you. One thing I've thought about too, and I don't know if they'll ever do it or not, but I've always thought it should be 2 or 3 tiered, because if you're a teenager working in fast food or whatever, then, or if you're a 30-year-old or a 35-year-old that's got a family, it would be a different rate. I always thought that might be the answer at some point, to have a lower rate for those first-time or workers that are first going into the job market, and then a higher rate for those people that, have a family and supporting that. But that's just me, but I don't know if we'll ever get there or not. But anyway, do we have any other questions for the sponsor? Okay, if not, we're going to be voting on House Bill 2602. All in favor say aye. All opposed? No. I'm sorry, the noes have it, and the bill died, but thank you for your work on this. Okay, yeah, okay, great, thank you. Thank you, yeah. Okay, that moves us to House Bill 2340 by Representative Pearson. Do we have a motion? We got a motion and a second. And Representative Pearson, you are recognized.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you so much, committee, for the motion and the second. I know when you don't have 2 Democrats, it's always a question if it'll happen. So I appreciate it. Before you is House Bill 2340. And it's honestly a simple bill. I've got 30 bills this session, 28 of them. I'm sure the majority of you will not support, but there are 2 that I think is good and could garner some bipartisan support. This is one of my 2. You've had already a lot of discussion about AI, artificial intelligence, the effect that's going to have on our communities, on our culture, the effect it's already having. When you think about deepfake technology, a lot of people are putting faces and voices toward things that no individual in a position of power particularly has said. The concerns that I have, and I've shared this before in reading The Common Wave, is like, what do we do about containment of this technology to protect ourselves, to protect public trust? This bill does 3 very simple things. It provides some definitions for artificial intelligence, synthetic media, and it clarifies how deepfake technology can be used, but also what labels need to be on it if it is being used. Only people that I think will be against this bill are bad actors. I don't think anybody of good conscience would be. But again, my concern is really twofold as elected officials, people using our voices or our faces and it not actually having any label that says this is actually being used by deepfake technology. And I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an Independent, Green Party, whatever the case is, when bad situations happen, you do go to people who are in positions of power and authority for information. And right now, someone could use any of our faces, could use the governor's face or anything, run ads on television or on social media or otherwise that say XYZ about an emergency. That can be completely untrue, completely fabricated, but there would be no way for us to know that. There's no label, there's nothing on a radio ad that says you have to say this is deepfake technology or anything like that. So we're in a, as was really mentioned, it's a vulnerable place economically, but we're also in a vulnerable place sort of socially and culturally. A couple of quick examples. The National Association of Realtors has recently said scammers are using agent deepfakes to fool buyers and sellers. Just a week ago, there was Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong was offering a double your money Bitcoin investment on YouTube, but Armstrong never did that. And there were a couple of students, in fact, who found out that consumers were being duped, and there is no remedy currently in Tennessee law as it relates to this. This would allow for an individual to seek injunctive relief, but it also clarifies those definitions as I articulated earlier. So with that explanation, Mr. Chairman, I renew my motion. I stand for any questions the committee may have.
Okay, and do we have any questions from anyone on the committee? Yes, Representative Lynn.
Mr. Chairman, we just passed the Elvis Act. I'd like to know from the sponsor how this is different significantly.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you so much, Representative Lynn. This is specific to deepfake technology. That was related more specifically to voice and was dealing with musicians and things like that. This would actually cover folks like you, folks like me, and this would also cover big personalities. So you think about corporations and CEOs. And so if there's any media that's advertisements that are coming through the radio or on television, this would have to say, this is what is happening on this technology with this technology. And that's not actually that individual who is subscribing to this, because it's actually terrifying, because you can really think of a bad person with a lot of money being like, Representative Lynn said all of these things and run that to every TV station in your district. But because people trust you as an elected official, they may listen to that, right? And that's a really hard thing for us to combat.
They might do that anyway, but thank you.
Yeah. At least in this case, they got to say it's not really you.
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm intrigued with this, and so I want to drill down just a little bit. And I'm going to use you as an example.
Okay.
So Representative Pearson, Jeremy Faison, I think you've got the dopest hair in the entire legislature. I totally dig. And I'm somewhat jealous that I can't do what you can do with your hair. It's my favorite around here. So if this bill was passed, a person who wishes they had your hair and they just decide to put your hair superimpose like a deep fake on their head, is that kind of what you're going to? Just are we in the same neighborhood there, or is this not at all?
No, that's
that?
more of Representative Pearson. Thank you, Chairman. That's more of a filter someone would have, and of course, everyone wants this hair. Look at it.
Right.
This is more someone using my face and saying, "I want you to go to schools and do harm to children, and go there at 3:00 today at this school and that school and that school." Right? This would prevent you from being able to do that without there being a banner on that advertisement or on that audio saying this technology is being used is not actually Representative Pearson.
Chairman Faison.
And me looking at this, I don't actually have the bill in front of me. I just have our marked calendar.
Yep.
This is a Class B misdemeanor. Does it go into, so are you setting a cause of action for an individual to be able to take them to court? Who brings it? If
Yes.
you go to the local DA, how do you pursue something
That's right.
at a person who's been egregious and used my face or your face, and then ask somebody to go do something?
So you would be able to go to the
Pearson.
court if, thank you, Chairman. If you go to section 1, I can read this for you. See, it is an affirmative defense for any action brought under this section that the publication containing synthetic media includes a disclosure stating this image, video, audio has been manipulated with the use of artificial intelligence or another digital technology and is not an accurate representation of the individual or event depicted, And then for here, after sort of further clarifying that, it does have a penalty related to it. Just give me 1 second. Of $10,000, and it would go, hold on 1 second, it's an affirmative defense. There we go. Forgive me. It's at section B. An individual whose appearance, action, or speech is altered through the use of synthetic media in a public communication that is knowingly distributed publicly with the intent to malign, slander, defame, or otherwise intentionally mislead the public and damage the reputation of the individual may seek injunctive relief and other general and special damages in accordance with this part against the individual or entity that published the synthetic media. A court may award a prevailing plaintiff reasonable attorney's fees and costs.
Yes, I think it also listed as a Class B misdemeanor.
It is
correct?
also.
Okay,
Thank you
okay.
so much, Chairman.
Yes, Chairman Faison. Okay. Leader Camper.
Thank you for the bill, and being forward thinking about the things that we're dealing with right now. The question I had was asked by the chairman, so I wanted a little more of an explanation of how the fact that you just want people to label this if they are actually doing this technology. So I think my question was answered. But thank you for the bill. It's a good bill.
Thank you, Leader.
Okay. Representative Pearson, do you have a comment on that?
No, thank you for that question. Yes, there has to be a remedy for people who abuse this. Definitely understand that and believe that this again is a part of legislation, including the Elvis Act, that we have to be serious about as we look at the effect artificial intelligence is going to have on our communities.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
Chairman Vaughn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the bill sponsor. It is a good, I'd never heard of synthetic media until you brought it forward, which brings me back to my point, and that I want to do, and I want to give you the opportunity to participate if you'd like. I've been trying to coach Representative Garrett. He's got a rather comprehensive AI bill coming forward, and what I find is that AI is this new frontier that a lot of us are being asked to embrace in some cases, to be afraid of in some cases. But I know the one thing that we need more of out of all of this is understanding and education on. What I would ask, and like I said, I would include you. I'm trying to put together a study group for a real summer study on this thing, and it's not. There's two types of summer studies. There's ones that people are trying to accomplish something, and others is a nice way. It's like a blue light no. This is one that we want to try to put together with some of the technological leaders across the state, and I would ask if you would be willing to put your bill to take your bill off notice and join our study. And this is not a game. But because you've brought forward something that I frankly haven't thought of, and that it's an idea that's important. But I've been trying to get us as a body to let's not overwhelm ourselves with AI until we know more about it. And we've got to at least get a kind of a cohort of folks that we can get with some of these tech folks to where we know what's good about it, what's bad about it. Obviously, you're pointing out some bad actors. I can't, but then again, I also think that bad actors aren't going to say, "Oh, before I do this, I need to stick the Tennessee label on it, and we'll be fine." I think that we need to have a much greater understanding of this before we do much more. And like I said, I had a conversation in the hall with Representative Garrett yesterday saying, can we reduce the scope of what you're doing here so that we better understand what it is we're doing? And so if we could, I would ask that and extend that to say, you'll be included in this group as we move forward. If this is an area, obviously you have an interest in it and somewhat of a better knowledge base than I do, but you'd be included in this group. But I'm encouraging us to let's pump the brakes a little bit on the AI until we know more. But I would invite you, because of your forward thinking here, to participate in that effort, if you're willing.
One, thank you so much for the invitation, and I definitely want to accept that invitation. I'll see what other questions folks have, just so we can, if there is other things that folks have concerns about, I can answer them. But Mustafa Suleiman in the Coming Wave, he writes a lot about containment, and I really would be happy to join any conversations that we're having, and would be willing to put the bill off notice in order to join those conversations.
But, well, I will say this is that you earned it with this subject matter. This is
well thought.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
I agree. Yeah, we need to, we don't have a whole lot of A and very little I, so we need to find out more about it. So thank you a lot.
Chairman.
So, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Sparks.
I just want to tell you, thank you for bringing legislation. I think I shared a couple weeks ago, I just finished a crisis communication class, last fall, I guess it was. And the deep fakes, I mean, that's a serious issue, that's going to affect probably each and every one of us. And, that committee, if I can ask Chairman Vaughn, is that going to meet in Memphis or is it going to meet in Nashville? Because I don't have to drive away to Memphis.
Come on to Memphis. No, some of us need that per diem. Come on. It's going to be in Nashville. Just
Go ahead,
kidding.
Chairman.
Just kidding. We'll hold
Thank
it in
you.
the central part
But
of the
he
state.
shared the same thing with us a couple weeks ago about this idea of a technology committee. I think it's very important. Look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Representative Sparks. And I mean, in honor of being an AI bill, I guess we're going to meet virtually on Zoom, of course.
Yeah,
so no matter where you are. Yeah, there you go. Fair enough.
Thank you, Representative Pearson. We appreciate the bill and thank you for all the work you've done on it. And so without objection, we're going to take House Bill 2340 off notice.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
And without objection, we're going to adjourn. We've run over our time. Hold on. All right, we got 4 bills. We got to roll. Do I need to list them separately?
No, just
Okay,
roll
yeah.
all of them to the
We're going to roll all the 4 bills left to the top of the next calendar. Without objection, we'll adjourn.